information required a lot of time and effort, and we're really happy that Jim's retired. Just a couple things before we start the question and answer. We do have literature that if you'd like to help us out with this effort, if you want to take some and hand them out at work, take them to your local grocery store and hang up a poster, or hand out some pamphlets. We've got all that. Take as many as you like or that you need. If you run out, just contact me and I can mail some more out to you. I will reiterate what the ground rules are for the question and answer. Jim explained to you what the process is and what we're going through, so we're not here to debate what a better process would be or what a better regulation will be. If you've got questions about the proposal, we'll be happy to take them now. So we'll start with this gentleman here. I'm sorry. I told this young lady here in the front row that we've got Pat Maurer here from the Clare County Review, and we'd like to ask you to come forward and speak into the mic. State your name first for the record so that if she quotes you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A couple of things that I'd just like to bring to attention. When you're using this data, when you're showing this data, you're using the data of hunters being surveyed. As a business owner, my name is Mark Lightfoot. I own a Swiss in Lake George. And first of all, I disagree with the percentage of lost hunters. As a business owner who's been in business for 17 years, I've seen at least a third, maybe even 40% drop in business during hunting. And a lot of that had to do with when the baiting restrictions were put in place. Those hunters have not returned, even now that the majority of those, even now that the baiting restrictions have been lifted. A true survey of this should be a combination of previous hunters and hunters. You're not using the proper data. You're using tainted data to come up with these statistics.
You're suggesting a better process?
No, not a better process.
A different process?
I'm just giving a point of view as a business owner that what you're proposing is a bigger drop in my business. More restrictions, causing less hunters to come forward or to come up north and enjoy the hunting program. It may be, your statistics say 1 year. Right now I'm looking at 4 years. The hunters have not returned from the baiting restrictions. I don't know that they will ever return. And you want to impose more restrictions on hunters now. I'm afraid we're going to lose even more hunters to what we should be trying to do.
For the record, the data that Jim is citing is all data that's collected by the Department of Natural Resources. This isn't data that we're putting together on our own.
And they're surveying hunters, not the ones who have left hunting.
Okay?
They're
surveying anybody that answered, they're surveying a portion, a sampling of hunters that returned their annual deer hunting survey the previous year.
You make a great point that the hunters would not have received a survey if they quit hunting. And that means that what we really have is an underestimate in many cases. And we're very well aware of that, but we only have the data that is available from the annual surveys. And we know that on a year-by-year basis, those areas that have APRs are staying more stable in hunter numbers, and one of those areas has even increased dramatically compared to the surrounding areas.
And one of those was during the baiting ban. Leelanau County was during the baiting ban. Yes, sir. Don't forget to state your name. I know it, but the rest of the county.
My name is Jim Return. I live in Osceola County. You mentioned the loss of hunters, especially through the northern lower peninsula, the UP. And in 20 years, we've lost over 400,000 hunters in this state. Majority of hunters, we're not losing hunters that own private property and are hunting on their property in the northern lower peninsula of the UP. We're losing the public land hunters, and we're losing them big time. And at one time the DNR projected 50 to 100 hunters per square mile on some of our state land. Today, you have a hard time finding 5 per square mile. So it's because of the lack of deer, when you impose antler point restrictions, instead of a hunter getting a deer every 10 years, he's going to be waiting a lot longer, and you're going to continue on losing more and more hunters. Till the day that we can improve hunting on our public land, and that includes the national forest, we're going to continue on losing hunters. But I'd just like to make one more comment as a private landowner. Nobody that I know, and I checked with a lot of my neighbors and other people, I have an opportunity to talk to a lot of people, nobody received a survey. We never had an opportunity to have any say-so into what happens on our property. Now, I know most of us, especially if we own property, we got a lot big investment in property. We've got a big investment on habitat, and we paying big taxes, and yet somebody's going to dictate how we're going to manage the deer herd on our land, and that's the big factor. You're going to have a big kickback in this.
Wait, that's right.
I'd also like to point out that Jim Maturin serves the hunters of this zone on the regional deer advisory team. So thank you, Jim, for your service on that. Your assertions aren't supported by the numbers in the zones, but we take your comments to heart. Thank you. Can you come forward? Get over on this side of the room next.
You guys want to just start lining up down there?
My name is Mike Cheater. I know Tony, I went to high school with Boyd. But what bothers me, guys, about this proposal is they say it's not about trophy bucks. It is. Has anybody here ever read Safari Club International? It's all about the trophy. Let me tell you, any deer can be a trophy. And another thing I want to say is your data out there that showed the percentage of loss per county. A lot of that is due that there is no place to hunt anymore. Unless you're a big landowner, you run your own show, you've got a place to hunt. Most of us are trying to hunt on state land, and if anybody's ever hunted state land before, you know what a nightmare that can be. Guys, go out of state and hunt for your trophies, man. Leave Michigan alone.
I might add that all that decline, Michigan probably boasts the most public ground accessible to hunters of any state this east of the Mississippi. So there's plenty of places to hunt, and the deer numbers are regulated by antlerless kills. So those are, it's not, deer numbers aren't regulated by buck kill. The numbers that we're experiencing right now are under the current regulations. So if you want more of the same, then vote no if you get a survey. Yes, sir. This gentleman right here.
My name's Jay McKenzie. I live down below in Rochester, Michigan, and a property in Roscommon County. Most of you know Roscommon County has been devastated pretty bad over the years.
Mike is not.
I've been fortunate for the last 8 years to own property there. Prior to that, I hunted public land. The question is really kind of twofold. First of all, you say that the survey entails 2,000. Is that correct?
That's, the DNR's informed us that there'll be 2,000 in Zone 2 and 2,000 in Zone 3, yes.
Okay, so 2,000. What percentage does that represent of all the hunters that hunt in Zone 2 and Zone 3?
It'd be a much greater percentage in Zone 2 and probably a smaller percentage in Zone 3, but statistically it's a huge sample.
It seems like a very small sample to me. And on a percentage basis, if that's all you're going to do is 2,000, then I don't think you have a real legitimate survey question.
Here's how it works with surveys. In order to get an understanding of plus or minus 5%, you need about 300 surveys returned, 350 to 400. As you increase the numbers in the sample, what you do is decrease the what's called the confidence interval. In other words, the plus or minus number. So you go from, you do 300 people, you'll get plus or minus 5%. It turns out if you go to 2,000 people in both regions, you get it down in between 2 and 3% confidence level. In the Northwest 12 was about 2.3%. So that means the actual number with high confidence is either plus 2 to 3% or less 2 to 3%. And that's all you do when you increase numbers, is narrow that confidence interval. So there's a cost benefit that is reached with that. In other words, it becomes very expensive. It's not very expensive to go from 5 to 3%, but it gets really expensive if you want to go from 2 to 1%, and you don't gain anything. You still get the same information.
So I guess my point is you have 2,000 surveyed, and you have 10,000 hunters, pick a number. That's only 20%. 66% of the 2,000 voted. That means that roughly 60% of the 2,000, not of 10,000, very small portion of the 10,000 hunters are voting for something, and everybody else is has to abide by it.
But statistically, it's a large sample.
It's a representative sample of the group.
Did you have a question?
My name is Richard King. I actually have a question for him. In this survey that you're doing the sampling, I've been hunting for pushing 50 years, and I've received one. The last 7, 8 years, maybe 9 years, I've been doing the computer survey. Are they going to be part of the selection process?
I see Ashley shaking her head.
Brian takes a subset from that. I'm sorry, Brian Foley's our survey specialist. He will take a subset of that. He did the same thing for the 12 Northwest. Takes the subset of that. As long as it's indicated, they hunt in one of the counties affected. That's the criteria.
So that should really eliminate the complaint about people saying, well, I never got a survey. Go online, go to a friend who's online, got the ability to go online, fill out a survey.
How can you go online? I don't have a computer or anything.
Probably don't.
Clare County Library. And that's a big lie when they said that the first 5 years of Clare County had that survey of everybody, and they was for that.
Do you have a question?
What I said was the majority of hunters were in favor of it. That is right straight out of the majority of the
Took your survey. Hey, that was not a survey.
I'm the one that was called a liar, so please let me respond to that.
Okay, well, let me finish first.
Okay.
What I'm saying to you, we live out there in section 16 in Arthur Township where this took effect. We never got a survey, and all at once they got pushed through 5 years on this.
Did you say your name?
Henry Boyer. And a lot of people know me around here. And I'm against that 3-point and 4-point because if I was just a kid at 13, 14 years old and want to hunt, and if I seen a 3-point come through there, a 2-point or a spike, I want to shoot that deer. I'm not going to wait until 10, 15, 20 years until I'm putting there an old man before I get a chance to shoot.
Okay, well, your point is well made, we hear you,
Then why don't you listen to us?
because we have a different point of view. But since I was called a liar, I want to take this moment
Okay.
to just tell you what I said. You yelled out of the audience that I was a liar. What I said was that in every area where ADRs have been tried, a majority of the hunters were in favor after 5 years in the survey. This is the survey from Clare County. Let me finish. 57% of hunters surveyed in Clare County were in favor of continuing.
And I don't-
40% were opposed.
Hey.
I have data, all you have is
All that
words.
data up there don't mean crap to me.
Okay, well,
We know what happened out there.
You've made yourself very clear that everybody out here is a liar. You don't believe any of the data.
I don't believe what he's saying.
Okay.
There was no survey.
You
I know, I
made
live out there. We
yourself
never
very
got no
clear,
mail,
sir.
nothing.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Your name?
Max Sean from Clare here. You talked about the checkpoints in Leelanau County. I was wondering how many checkpoints were in Leelanau County compared to the rest of the state. You make everything sound so good. Let's cut the crap and let's see how many checkpoints were in Leelanau County compared to every other county in the state.
You would have to ask the DNR.
I'm sorry.
DNR,
I'm sorry.
how many checkpoints were in Leelanau County compared to every other county in the state? Remember, Leelanau County is a peninsula. One road in, few roads in, few roads out.
Okay.
How many checkpoints were there compared to every other county in the state?
How many check stations during what time frame are you kind of.
Well, from where they got this information, where they got this survey data from, this deer count data, this group of people are getting up here telling us how good things are in Leelanau County compared to the rest of the state. Jim stated how good things were. How many checkpoints did you have for that county compared to every other county in the state of Michigan?
Checkpoints compared to every other one. There was
Was
a
there-
special check station in Leelanau.
Okay, that's all.
The trial period, and right now, the main check station used for Leelanau is Great Traverse. It's the Traverse City office is the main check station. It's been that way since the trial ended.
The Traverse City office, it's the Traverse City office is the main checkpoint station for Leelanau County. It's not even in Leelanau County. You guys do understand that you can check your deer in any DNR office across the state. They're scattered all over the state, and they also post themselves in processing. I run a deer poll in Eaton County, and I collect the data for the DNR too. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of co-ops that are collecting data and sharing that. A lot of people that are very interested in helping the DNR make these determinations.
Now, Harrison used to be open, we could do that.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I want to know why that your check stations aren't open most of the time.
But they're not my check stations, they're the DNR's check
Well,
stations.
that's what you have on this show.
I can answer any outside questions you have from this. I'd be happy to give you my card, or we can talk after the meeting too. I'm more than happy to.
Do you have a question, sir? Okay, come on down.
Yes, I'm Ron Shaver, I'm from the Clare area. I have a couple questions. One, I was wondering what your organization feels the impact will be on recruitment and retention and the resulting, not only the resulting cost that it might incur with the department, but also the economy in the north. I happen to believe that it's going to have a very negative impact on both recruitment and retention, particularly on public lands in the north. I also have another question, and I'd like an answer what you people think about what I just asked. I have another question on the survey. Is your survey that will be going out on this issue going to be slanted so as to solicit a yes vote as it did in the northwest 12 counties?
First of all, it's not our survey. I thought we made that fairly clear, that it's the DNR survey. If you have questions about the survey, feel free to ask the DNR about that, but I think we made it fairly clear that it's not our survey. The other question is about retention and what do we feel, what are our feelings about that? Again, we're citing data from two counties or two deer management units, one in full county, the other one covers parts of 3 counties, have grown their hunter numbers or at least maintained their hunter numbers while every DMU around them has shrunk by an average of about 20%. Now, my thought is, because you asked what our thought is, my thought personally is that more hunters, or at least the same number of hunters, are going to promote deer hunting to their youth more than fewer hunters are, and more hunters, or the same number of hunters, are going to spend as much or more money than fewer hunters. Does that make sense?
Do you think that now on public lands, that the hunters wait 7 years, you shoot them up now?
If hunters are, do you believe that hunters are happy waiting 7 years to kill a buck on public land under the current regulations? Are hunters happy waiting 7 years now under the current regulations to shoot a buck?
No, they're not.
So under the current regulations, you're admitting that under the current regulations we're losing hunters, but there's no reason to try anything different when data shows that other areas that are doing this are either maintaining their hunter numbers or increasing their hunter numbers, but it's better not to do anything.
That's completely separate issue.
It directly answers the question that you asked.
Habitat up there, but nothing being done.
done, literally nothing being done to improve the habitat.
Okay, up until just a couple years ago, private groups couldn't do anything with habitat because it was a union issue with, if the state had anybody that was laid off, private groups couldn't come in and do habitat work on state property. That's been taken care of. So now, get with your local biologist and they'll be happy to show you a spot where you can go out and do some habitat work on a
Let me
public
tell you
road.
something on that. I'm on the northern Peninsula Deer Advisory Team. And habitat was one of the main issues. We have not discussed it yet. We've only discussed APR. That's all that's been on the area. In fact, you were invited to our last.
Yeah, I was there, yeah.
Did a 20-minute presentation. Before
I was asked there to talk about the proposal that we had from the, I wasn't
who put it on
invited.
the agenda?
Ashley asked me to come up and talk to you about it. She thought that it was pertinent, and also some of the some of the other members encouraged Ashley to have me come up and give the presentation. Okay? I mean, you guys are on the Deer Advisory Team. You got a private presentation of what we're proposing and why. It seems reasonable to me that you would want that. So. Gentleman over here, make sure you state your name, please.
My name is Jack Badke, and I guess my question is more directed to the DNR people than you fellas here. Although I think you guys would have a lot more credibility if you push as hard that every vote or every 100 here, you've got our address, you've got our driver's license number, you know everything that there is to know about us there. Every hunter, every license should have a vote, not just a select bunch of people that fill out a survey. I filled out a survey for several years when I was having some phenomenal success. I got one every year. Then my luck kind of changed and the surveys quit coming. So I decided I'm going to do it online. I'm going to join the current new age here. I waited until January to do mine, and it wasn't accepted. I was past this deadline that people had there, so I never even got a voice. So obviously I'm not going to even be selected to get a voice in this thing here, but I think if you guys would push as hard for every hunter that had a license, that had a vote in something like this with true numbers. Because I think half the people that are filling out these surveys are people that are happy with the current system and not the people that are here tonight. I think the numbers could be significantly different.
Thank you. Thanks for your comment.
First of all, we don't have your names and your license numbers and your addresses. We're the Lower Peninsula Deer Management Initiative. So we don't have that information, so let's clear that up right now. So, boy, it'd be nice to have all the addresses of the people that we thought would vote for this, but that wouldn't be reasonable. I don't know what the situation was with why you couldn't submit that. Again, that's a DNR issue. Now, let me share some information with you. We brought this proposal before the Department of Natural Resources in April. We've been advertising it ever since on social media, radio, television, newspaper, outdoor publications. How many hunters are there in this general area? This meeting was designed to represent a 4-county area. You know how many people are in this room? Less than 90.
Probably the same percentage as the 2,000 people that are going to vote.
Less than 90 people who cared enough to come down and voice their opinion about this antler point restriction. Now, concerning surveys, the DNR sent out 55,000 hunter surveys last year for the 2012. Anybody want to render a guess on what percentage were returned after they got 2 reminders in the mail? 53% of the people who got a survey and 2 reminders took the time to check a couple boxes, lick the envelope, I don't even know if they had to put a stamp on it, and walk to the mailbox. Are you sure that you want every hunter having a voice?
Absolutely.
It's statistically, it's the survey process that's in place right now is statistically sound. That's why the DNR is using it. And it's,
license, it could be on
and the survey process is the survey that they're running is part of the process that we agreed to when we brought forth this proposal. We didn't have the option of suggesting a different way. We had the option of proposing some different restrictions, but they still had to meet certain criteria. One of them was to protect at least 50% of the bucks. We have to get at least a 50% response rate, and it has to get at least 66% of the support on the survey. That's it. That's what we're working with. There may be a better way. We don't disagree there may be a better way. But this is what we're dealing with.
Tony, it's no different than any special interest group. You guys count on low numbers, low people. That's the same thing with gay rights. I mean, that's how they get their movement.
Well, I hope we weren't going to go there tonight, Mike. The fact of the matter is there's a process in place. We agreed to it. The bar that's been set for us to get acceptance of this is extremely high to get 66% support on this. So, any other questions? I told this gentleman here he was next. He's been very patient. Go ahead and state your name, sir.
Jeff Eibling, E-I-B-L-I-N-G. And my wife and I own 40 acres in southern Isabella County. And Isabella County, as most of you know, is high percentage private property. We don't really have a problem with 20 deer hunters for every deer that's run around. And there are a lot of things that a private landowner can do. We've got a lot of fruit plots, what they call it, on down there. I've been planting trees and shrubs on my property for 35 years. And I happened to get this 2.5-year-old buck, so the DNR says, last opening day. We don't need antler point restrictions in Isabella County. Antler point restrictions do one bad thing. They put 1.5-year-old 8 points right in the bullseye. And that's what we don't want. That is not QDM. I know I'll take the spike one guy. I had a spike going out last year. I thought, shut this guy. 2 inches on one side, 4 inches on the other. I don't hear about 8-point fawns. That's 100% of the population. They're not what we're talking about. I'm getting the spike ones out. I've been doing it for 20 years, and that's the result.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that the 1.5-year-old 8-point, that was 8 by DNR.
Yeah, they all are.
Okay. The 1.5-year-old 8-point that he held up as an example, under current regulations, is a target. Under our proposed regulations, is a target.
No, you're doubling it though, you're doubling it. You have no choice to shoot a spike. Under your regulation.
You can shoot him as soon as he grows 3 points on one side. Listen, maybe it wasn't made clear in the presentation, but the purpose of this is to advance 1.5-year-old bucks to the next age class.
But you're not advancing the good ones, you're just advancing the bad ones.
It's your opinion that this 8-point
No,
at a
it's
year and a
not
half.
just my opinion.
It's your opinion that he's better genetically as a 1.5 years than a spike is at a 1.5 years.
You're giving me a,
The science doesn't support your
you're giving me a bioelectrician with a PhD, and I'll color that deer hair any color you want.
I'm Dave Cooper from the Mid-Michigan Sportsman's Alliance. We've talked about hunter retention and recruitment. The thing we haven't mentioned is the fact that the proposed DNR license increases for 2014, they admit their estimates are that it will decrease hunter license sales by 7%. Now, Mark, what's that going to do to you over there?
It's going to be 6,000 less customers.
You bet. And I tell you, I'm sorry for that poor guy that has to hunt on state land. How many hours, weeks, months might he have to go before he finds a legal buck? You guys got it all wrong on this antler point restriction stuff. I agree with you somewhat, but what you're doing is you're saying, well, we can only shoot those 3 and 4 points. What you're doing is you're shifting all that hunting pressure onto those big bucks. So more of those big bucks are harvested. So what you're doing is you're deleting the gene pool from that. Less of those bigger bucks to do the breeding to carry on their genetics forward. And at the same time, while you're doing that, you're not doing a darn thing to eliminate those small bucks. The bucks that are never going to advance to looking like either one of those. Sometimes 2.5, 3-year-old deer end up to have straggly horns, and them are the guys that should be taken care of. You have no mechanism whatsoever to take care of them, so they continue breeding and breeding and breeding. And we went through it in Clare County, a demonstration area for 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, the evaluation was done by the DNR, and they said that there was no significant difference in the antler growth or anything. They also admit that there's no biological difference in the health of the animals, whether we have antler point restrictions or not. So why do we go through all this stuff? And you know what? Property owners out there, you have the right to do what you want to. You can do your own voluntary antler point restrictions if you choose. That's your right.
That's what it should be.
Why do we have to be told what we're going to have to do all the time?
So you brought up a really important piece of information there, and so I want to show you data that is from a DNR presentation that talks about this very issue. One of the most important things they were looking at after 5 years in Clare County was, did it cause problems that would be reflected in the antler size within age groups? And you just pointed out that they saw no difference. If you look at the top line there where it says DMU 118, 1.5 years old, you have pre and post antler restrictions. These are what would have been legal bucks pre compared to the legal bucks post that were aged at 1.5 years, and there's no difference pre and post in either the number of points or in the diameter of their antler beams. If you go to the 2.5-year-old class, there was actually a significant increase in antler structure. If you go to the 3.5-year-old, that increase was in beam diameter. The 3.5-year-old, there was a slight increase there. So antler point restrictions do not select out genetically. These are the data that show it for this county, for DMU 118. And at the bottom, DMU 18 was also looked at. So the thing that you just said is very strong evidence that there isn't any genetic selection going on. Do you follow that?
That's not true. I have deer on my property that have webbed horns, and you see them from year to year. You know what I mean?
I have something like that. I think most people see deer like that. Yeah.
And that's carrying on.
But the DNR looking at large numbers of deer indicates otherwise. I mean, we all have personal observations in the woods, but this is scientific data that says that there hasn't been any selection going on.
It's also if you have those deer, there's provisions in the proposal to have kids shoot them. You know, if you got those deer, you want to have kids come out and shoot them, boy, what a great opportunity to bring a kid into the sport on. They won't be able to under this proposal.
So what?
Yeah, I do.
What did happen?
Special use reasons, kids would not be restricted. Any kid hunting under the mentored youth license, no restrictions, and any person hunting under the apprentice license, no restrictions. That was part of the presentation. You missed that.
So that's great, you know, way to invite a kid to hunt, a reason to do that. The other thing that the DNR found in DMU 118 was that there was a substantial increase in age structure of the herd. So the bucks that were being harvested during that period were bigger and had larger antlers. The slide I just showed you shows the progression in antler size as they get older. At 1.5 years old, they went from 77% of the harvest here in Clark County down to 53%. 2.5-year-olds doubled in the harvest from 17 to 30%. 3.5 years old tripled in the harvest from 6 to 17%. And as I told you before, these kind of regulations are so far removed from trophy regulations because only 2% of them are, or 3% of the bucks were 4.5 or older, whereas in a trophy herd, it would be 80 or 90% would be 4.5 or older. So all this does is advance gauge structure. It does not hurt the genetics, and it allows hunters to harvest bigger bucks with more meat and larger antlers for those that want it. We have some guys that have been waiting here for quite a while, but we'll get to you.
My name is Gerald Haynes. I just have a question of how this is going to help me. I've hunted the UP, I started hunting back in 1956. And when they put the antlers, or they put the point restrictions on, I quit hunting the UP, started hunting the northern lower. Now I always bought the combo license. They put a restriction on the second license, so I quit buying the combo. I just buy the one. I don't get around real well in the woods, but I love to hunt. And I'd love to shoot a buck like this here, but I'd rather put a spike horn in my freezer every winter than I would wait for 10 years to find one of these.
Just to be clear, that our proposal is for the southern peninsula, not the UP.
Hi, my name is Mark Yanko. I was the main person in the initiative 5 years ago, so you guys can throw your tomatoes now. I commend you guys for doing this. I think it's a great program. I know we're not supposed to talk about the process, but I think 4 points outside would be better to protect 85% of the bucks, year-and-a-half-old bucks. Another thing about the process, I'm not supposed to talk about that, 66% approval. That's crazy. We live in a democracy where 51% gets you a president and a governor. It's messing with your economy. All right. So,
We have one more set of time. We can come up with
I think you guys are doing a great job. It's a great proposal. I wish it was increased a little bit, but keep going.
Thanks.
My name is Bob Hargrove, and I've hunted this DMU 118 for 40 years. I've got antlers from 5 years before this started, 5 years after, and there was no difference in the size of the ant. Whereas they're 57%. I don't know where they came from, but that 57% they had for it, because there's 12 of us that's friends, and we've never once got a, what do you call it? Survey. That's all I got to say. But, one more thing. Leland County, there's always a practice. What they're asking fruit farmers what they think of this.
There you go.
I can tell you that the fruit farmers have been complaining to DNR, and they've been complaining about rubs. They have met together, the Horticultural Society up there. They also complained about 5 acres of grapes being stripped by deer, and they have complained about browsing. All three of these things indicate population increases. If you just had increases in rubbing and not increases in fruit eating and browsing, then you could suggest the possibility that it was antler point restrictions that might have led to that. But they have reduced the antlerless quota. It was 1,250 antlerless quota in 2001. It was 1,000 in 2000 in the next year. Those are the 2 years prior. And what do you think it is now, the last 2 years? It's gone down 6-fold, 5 to 6-fold. It was 200 the last 2 years and 300 before that. So antlerless quotas have gone down 5 to 6-fold, and farmers are starting to complain about damage to fruit trees by rubbing, eating, and browsing. That's probably a population issue. And the DNR, by the way, has gone to the NRC and is looking, I think, for higher quotas. I don't know if they achieved it this year.
For July, they will approve.
Okay, so they're going after higher quotas there because they're trying to respond to what is a population problem and not a hard harvest problem.
We've got about 5 minutes before we've got to get out of here. Is there any more questions? Yes, sir.
My name is Doug Brink. The first question I have for you is buck number 42. I'm sorry. The first question is buck number 42. Was that a free-ranging deer or a pen deer? And you managed to catch that same deer 4 years later on state land, though.
Sure. This is a study that was published several years ago by Corth and Crow. James Crow was one of the leading deer researchers in the country. This has been a several-year ongoing study where they have large numbers of graduate students, they have helicopters, and they go out and capture deer, they tag them. And then they assess, they ask people to turn in the tags and that sort of thing. When a deer gets killed, they find out the ones that are hit by cars, and many of the bucks are recaptured in later years. This is a very intensive effort over a very large area, and it's still ongoing today, even though they published data several years ago. And there are many examples of bucks like this. There's no study that's been done in a wild herd that shows that you can predict what antlers are going to be in older bucks by looking at a young one. There are studies in a laboratory situation where you can show that, but you have to very carefully control.
I just want to make sure that I understand that that deer was captured on state land or public land and was not in a high fence area.
It was free range. It was
free range.
Okay. Second question. What's the penalty for shooting a smaller deer?
What is it now? You don't know, you don't know.
No. If you put APR in and you shoot a spike, what happens? What's the fine?
We don't have any control over what law enforcement does with enforcing the regulations. Do you buy a combination license now? You do realize that the second tag has got a 4-point restriction on it? So you are aware that if you shoot a buck when you're trying to fill that second tag that doesn't meet that restriction, that you're subject to penalty now?
So it would be considered poaching and a $5,000 fine.
I don't know where you came up with that number.
Well, if you shoot a deer that's not legal, that's technically poaching, correct?
So
if you shoot a deer that meets the APR restrictions.
Okay. I think that what you're suggesting is that the penalties will be stiffer after APRs than they are right now. I don't think that's the case.
Well, I just want everybody to know that if you shoot something that doesn't meet the APR restrictions,
it doesn't matter
it's the
if it's
same
with
now.
APR restrictions or if it's now. You can still be subject to penalty. Okay, good one, yeah.
State name.
Statute penalties in the state of Michigan. Sorry. Statute penalties in the state of Michigan for illegal deer, mandatory 5 days in jail, lost money privileges, $1,000 restitution on the deer, anywhere from $50 to $500, whatever the court decides to charge. That's up to the court. It's not up to the DNR. That's not a DNR issue.
I just want everybody to be aware.
It's a statutory issue.
So if you make those states and shoot too small of a deer, penalties are strict.
Potentially.
Just like
We
now.
also had people that have accidentally shot 2 does on a plume. It happens. Are we dragging those people to the court system? No. Every situation is different. Can't touch on all the aspects of law enforcement here in a public meeting about handling restrictions. But you have to understand every situation is different. There's obviously intent there, and the court so if the court so warrants those penalties as what they deem acceptable, then that's up to the court. But that's not something that, every new law or every new rule is obviously going to have some sort of break-in period. They usually do.
So the short answer is nothing's going to change about it. If you shoot an illegal deer, it'll be handled just like it is today.
One last question.
Sure.
Does the DNR wildlife biologist support APR?
The DNR's official position on mandatory antler point restrictions are that if we follow the process that's put in place, we meet all the criteria, it garners the 66% of the support, they will make a recommendation to the NRC that it be implemented for a 5-year test period?
So the answer is no, then. There's not a DNR biologist here that can answer that question, that they are in favor or not in favor of APR.
We are neutral. This is purely a social issue. My job is to manage the herd based on biology. This is a social issue. It doesn't matter. A herd managed with an APR is no better or no worse than a herd managed without one.
Really?
Therefore, biologically, yes. Scientifically, right now, there is nothing that says a herd managed with an APR is any better or any worse. That is why this process is in place. We want to do this survey and find out from a social standpoint how you feel about this.
Right.
So then all their stats up here are just bullcrap now.
That begs the question.
Ashley, a follow-up question, if I may. Is there any biological benefit to the 3-inch spike rule that we're under right now?
No, that's technically an APR too.
This proposal is intended to protect some 1.5-year-old bucks and move them to the next age class. Hunters have indicated on hunter surveys for years that they want to see more and older bucks. We're answering that call. Very simple. This is the process that's put in front of us, and we're following it. And if hunters want this, they'll vote in favor of it. One more question. Any other questions on this side of the room? I'll get back to you.
I was just curious, out of the 9 meetings you've had so far, what has the response been?
Only one meeting did somebody ask for a show of hands. It was overwhelmingly in favor. Some meetings have been, probably 50-50. I don't know what's going out. But turnout, this is the best turnout we've seen. Imlay City last week was the best that we've seen. By and large, before tonight, average was about 40 people. That bothers me. I think that largely deer hunters are apathetic. But that's a prerogative. So, we could do a show of hands here, but really, it's the people that are going to decide which are the ones that did get a survey. One more question in the back end.
Can we see a show of hands of who got surveys in the last 2 years?
Well, how about, in the last 2 years, this many people. How many got them this last season? So these are the people that will be part of, if they indicated.
The ones that didn't raise their hands. The ones that didn't raise their hands.
Yeah, Jim will address that.
Just to give you a feeling for the survey, about around 1 in 13 hunters are going to receive a survey. So sometimes, like I did several years ago, the annual survey. A few years ago, I got a survey 2 years in a row, and I haven't gotten one for years since. The odds of you going 39 years without getting a survey is about the same as flipping a coin a bunch of times and getting 3 tails in a row. It's going to happen. There are some people that are going to get several. There are some people that will hunt for 40 years and never get one. But it's really a huge survey. The DNR spends a lot of money on it. As surveys go, it's gigantic. We send out over 50,000 surveys. The Gallup poll covers the entire United States with 4,000 surveys to get a plus or minus 4% understanding of what the voters think. That's, 100 million people. So the survey science works. Just because you didn't get one doesn't mean that 1 out of 13 people aren't.
Okay, if you got more questions, we'll answer them out of the suit. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.